right, well, this is Alice Bodner from Alice's Kitchen. As you know, I'm a retired family and consumer science teacher, and it's a pleasure for me to be here with you. Today we're going to do turkey, which is so exciting because it's right around the corner that we have our holidays. So now I've kept it in my package, and I've taken the package off with a scissors. Is the easiest way. And some people wonder, you know, I use a roasting pan and just take it off right here and the juices will run, but they're not going to run all over my kitchen counter. All right, the raw juices will be right in the pan. And I have a little bacon rack here for it because, as you know, all this nice skin and stuff is going to roast off, and the grease and roaster juices will be in the pan. Now if you go right here, there's the cavity and the gizzards, all right, and such. Neck bone is in the cavity. It's in a little wrapping paper, and you just pull it out. And so if I don't have a roasting pan, I might use a tin, but please, it will collapse under the weight of the roaster, any kind of roaster, heavy meats. So you will literally take it out and it could fall on the floor, but even worse, the hot fat could burn you. So put it on a cookie tin, and this will be easier for you to get the roaster out because look, you have something to hold on to. You'll have pot holders, of course, and it'll be a nice sturdy base for you. Sometimes I just put a little salt and pepper on before I put it in the oven. I also might put a little sprig of rosemary or celery. They currently do not recommend, USDA does not recommend that we stuff our turkey in the cavity, all right? And that is because it increases the chance of salmonella. Now I know a lot of people do it. Maybe they've been lucky and haven't gotten sick, but currently USDA says not to do it. If you do it at all, very lightly, not stuffing it hard and compact. Now we're going to put the turkey in the oven, and then we'll see how it looks coming out. Now we've put our roaster in the oven. We have set it for 325. Your package will give you some general recommended cooking times, and we do have a recipe with cooking times on it. That's 325. You preheat the oven, generally 20 minutes a pound, but they will give you some averages right on the package. This one was 7 pounds, so we did 3 hours. So if it's 20 minutes a pound times, you know, let's say 10 pounds, that's 200 minutes and 60 minutes to an hour. So that would be 3 hours and 20 minutes. All right, so you'll have to figure that out. The other challenge will be having everything come out at once, so we'll talk about that. But let's see how Mr. Roaster's doing. Now I will pull the rack, and I will have space. With everything going on, you got to remember to have room on your stovetop to put the roaster. My rack is, and there'll be signs that it's done. You know, it'll be a nice golden brown. They'll describe the leg and such as being, you know, kind of loose, and it will have a nice, the meat will be a nice white opaque. The juices will be clear. It won't be pink and translucent. You can take a meat thermometer. Most will have a pop-up thermometer. That's your gold standard till it's done. But you put it in the thickest part of the meat, and you wait, and you can read the temperature. It's done at 165 in the thickest part of the meat, and sometimes people will take more than one place. And that's our turkey. And we're going to do a couple of side dishes next. Welcome back. Now that we have our turkey well in hand, we're going to do our side dishes. And I suppose the question is how do I get it all to come out at the same time? And I'm too busy for this. All right, so here's the trick. Do everything you can the night before. You peel your potatoes the night before. Put them in cold water. Obviously, tepid water is fine. It's gonna warm as the night goes on. I do it like the night before. I wouldn't go too far ahead. So I'm gonna peel one here just to show. You put the pressure on it. You show it who's boss. And, you know, people love mashed potatoes. You can't make too many. This is also how we do it. You can ask for help. You know, it's all right if you can have a potato peeler, show people how to do it, and they can help you the night before. And then you kind of cut it in cubes. Again, blade down. This is how a friend hands a knife to a friend. I've got them all hopefully peeled up, so I'm not doing this while I'm doing everything else. But obviously you want to cook them the day of the turkey. So I have done some ahead, and I think our water is boiling, and I've put some potatoes in there. All right, so again, touch handle. It is a cool touch, don't assume. And I have to strain. And so this pan is hot, but I like to do everything one pot. So notice this is a stovetop, so it's not disturbing anything in the oven. This is, 4 to 6 potatoes, half a cup of milk, a little bit of margarine, little salt, little pepper. How do I know the potatoes are done? They should be fork tender. I already know that. But just to show you, they're very, very easy. I use an all-purpose potato. Everybody has their favorite. And I'll use I like a So it whips up. You could also use a potato masher. I think the texture's a little coarser, but that's all right. It's fair game to use the stove as a heating element, right? So I might do this within an hour of when the turkey's done. And now we are going to move into stuffing. All right, welcome back. We are making continuing side dishes, and stuffing is stovetop. USDA does not recommend that we put stuffing in the turkey. Increases the risk of exposure to salmonella potentially. So most of your package mixes, it depends on the mix, but you'll see directions right on the package. All right, so most of your recipes, your package mixes, call for about 1.5 cups water, but you'll have per package, but you will have to, this size, but you will have to see what the type that you buy. And this is all seasoned. This is a lower sodium stuffing mix. And they tend to put just a big mixture of seasonings in the stuffing. So sage and some parsley. Some people like to make their own. You can buy just the plain, bread, and you can put in Bell's is a popular stuffing. You can just add your own seasonings. And you cut up a little bit of butter. We're going to put the margarine in the boiling water. And again, it's like about 1.5 cups. I put a little celery in because, and some people in their stuffing like, they put whatever they want, celery, onions. You have to cook the meats ahead, but you can do pepperoni, sausages. People do anything they want. But the meats have to be cooked ahead. All right, this won't cook it. This will sort of just melt everything. So once you get that water boiling, I put a few pieces of cooked celery in. Then you take it and turn the heat off. And then you add the stuffing. So the odd thing is you're not really cooking the stuffing, You're more or less just adding, but it does taste delicious. It will have the seasonings all filled to the bottom. Usually it has all the flavorings. And it you just moisten it, let it puff up a little bit. And this is pretty easy to do within an hour of the time that the turkey's done. You could do it ahead, but it probably tastes better fresh. And it's there to leave it on the stove. And keep it warm. I think that our next thing will be a muffin and then gravy. All right, welcome back. Now some people like biscuits or rolls. You can do even the prepared biscuits, and those should really be right at the end because you like them warm. The corn muffins you could do the day before and then just heat them up after the turkey's, out of the oven. You're just reheating that with the apple crisp. But this is a homemade corn muffin. It's fine if you want to use a Jiffy Mix or whatever you want. This should be a fun day for everybody, So this recipe calls for 2 eggs. Again, you crack on the side. Some people aren't comfortable cracking. They don't want shells. So they could put a small dish, crack out a small dish, and then make sure that there are no shells, and put it in the bowl, a 1/2 cup of milk. All right, and I'm going to mix that up. All right, and then in my smaller bowl, I'll put a cup of flour, 1/2 cup of corn meal, a tablespoon of baking powder, kind of a lot of baking powder, and 1/2 cup of sugar. This makes about 12. It's funny, I got a little piece of an apple in there. All right. And again, you will Just blend it together well. And probably this would be best with the fork. You kind of notice I use what I have on hand, but all right, I put a little, you know, about half in at a time and mix it together. Don't forget the baking powder, and the baking powder is a spoonful, not a cupful, right? See that it's blended. And sometimes we used to put a little bit of corn if we had some leftover corn. Remember we cooked corn last time? And this will be smooth. It will be maybe a little thicker than we're used to from our package mixes, but all right, we got it all. So we put paper in, and we take a spoon and we fill it about halfway. And so we can easily get 12. And then if not, we can also do little bread tins, all right? And so I would spray this with the cooking oil, the pan, and then I would fill it about halfway. And I would put these on a tray, a cookie tray, because again, they could be difficult to take out otherwise. And I did prepare some things ahead, so once we've got all the muffin tins full and the bacon tins full, it takes about 15 minutes at 350. Again, your oven's 325 for the turkey, so that's another thing to keep in mind. But muffins, apple crisp, if you're doing them with the turkey, and again, we recommend you could do these earlier, it's close enough. It may take like an extra 5 minutes or so, a bit of a forgiving item. If you do a homemade biscuit, may not be quite as forgiving. All right, I open the door, I pull the rack, and out comes my corn muffins, lightly golden, my cornbread, which makes it sort of nice. And it's nice if people want to take something home, they can take a little mini loaf home, clean with the toothpick. That makes you sure that it's done. You may have a crumb, but nothing wet. So my potatoes are mashed around the oven, my stuffing's doing its thing, my corn muffins, if I'm making them that day, you know, I'm ready to go with those. So the turkey is still cooking, you know, if we were really, or the roaster would still be in the oven. And I think we're gonna do the gravy. So now we're going to do gravy, because you can buy convenience, and sometimes people like to do that as a backup. But if you want to, we'll do it a couple of different ways. This is just a packet of mix, which is flour, seasonings, and various spices and such. The thing about flour is it wants to clump up. And people don't, they get worried about having like a really lumpy, tasteless gravy. So there are a couple of ways. This mix, obviously, this flour should be, sometimes they pre-treat it a bit so it's less likely to stick together. All right, so we will see And you gotta actually, if it says a cup of water, it's a cup of water, not like any old amount, right? And I keep mixing it. I'm being gentle because I don't want to knock the handle off on me, but it should thicken. We'll bring it to a boil. The cold water separates the flour granules, is what it does, and helps prevent clumping. And then as it boils, the flour absorbs the water and thickens. So, I'm gonna just let it boil. The other way of is from scratch, which you have to be up for, all right? You gotta wait for the turkey to be cooked. Now it will say, take the turkey or the roaster drippings, the fat, but it really doesn't tell you how to get it out of the pan, the roaster pan. So what I do is I let the roaster sit a little bit so it's not red hot. All right, I can't forget to stir this guy. But I just take a soup ladle and ladle the juice and fat out of the pan because, you know, I'm sorry, I don't want to get third-degree burns by, you know, tipping the pan when it's red hot and all that. I'm sure you don't either. So this is, I sort of scoop that from the pan. And the good thing about homemade, of course, it is very, you can't beat it. You know, it has all the flavorings. So, all right, so this is a 1/4 cup, and this is the fat. Now, flour, again, which likes to be clumped up, doesn't, put that on low, doesn't like fat. All right, so the flour will put a little in at a time. And we'll coat this flour with fat. And this will separate it out so it doesn't clump. And sometimes if you're lucky, you can get a burnt piece, like from the bottom of the pan. It actually tastes good. Just keep whisking away. This guy. That looks like it needs a little flour. All right. So, and it will come to sort of a soft boil, a low boil. And what you've done is you've made a roux. You've mixed flour and butter. This is a trick too with macaroni and cheese. So then what I would do, because I didn't have enough juice from the turkey, is I would, to enhance the flavor, I feel this thickening a little, I should probably have a wooden spoon because this is hot. This is a hot one. I'm going to just give it a rest for a minute over here. I'm going to use a little chicken broth. So I have my, and I believe it is a cup, right? Now it would have been better if I got the juice from the turkey and all that, but I didn't have as much. So I just add a little at a time and just keep stirring, keep stirring. And then you can also, you know, if there's, you know, a little bit of drippings or such from the pan, I might add those, you know, once I've established. I believe this is a 1/4 cup fat with, you know, about approximately a cup of broth. And now it's got to thicken. So this has started to thicken. All right, you're gonna let it sit a little bit. It has little pieces of burnt sort of turkey skin and meat. So, all right, so we're just gonna keep stirring this, let it thicken. It will come, you don't want it to boil. You don't want it to be a hard boil, but that mixture of flour and butter is sort of the basis of a lot of cooking. And I think we're gonna put a plate together. You think it's time? Okay. All right, so the big moment has arrived. Everybody's hungry. We want to eat. All right, this is just a little rosemary sprig to give it a little flavoring. And the main thing is now, this would have a lot of juice. If you're lucky enough to have a board with these ridges, that would help. But if you're not, just put some towels around a cutting board. And I like a sharp knife with a point, and you want a nice big fork. All right, so to cut, you may want to remove a little bit of the skin if the skin's hard. And you take your time, you cut down. There's dark meat, light meat. You know, some people like the bone. And I just keep going. You know, they'll eat it. And this is a smaller roaster, but you know, you cut your pieces, and then if you can actually take the wing and even break it. You know, some people like that. All right, so you see what people like, and then you usually do a mixture, which is nice with the roast, is that you're not, you got all different kinds and parts, and usually you have leftovers. It's relatively inexpensive. All right, there's some dark meat, there's some light meat. Usually you put it on a platter, and you have your mashed potatoes and your stuffing. Usually the stuffing may be in a separate dish, but you've kept it warm on the stove. And sometimes it's nice if people can just serve themselves, you know, from the stove to keep it hot. Give it another mix. Your corn muffins. And of course your gravy. Miracles do happen. This was the gravy on the stove that we made ourselves, homemade. And people usually, they like to put their own on. See, that thickens up and it's not lumpy. But remember, butter or margarine and flour first. And this is this was very runny. I was a little disappointed, but as it sat, it thickened up. And so there's where we don't have a vegetable, but you can take any vegetable you like. You know, anything goes this time of year. And so we have our feast, our roast, our muffin, potato stuffing, and for dessert, apple crisp in season. So we hope you enjoy your holidays and stay healthy. We'll see you next time.